So Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has been out for a few weeks now, and it is, to say the least, blown up way more than anyone has anticipated. To no surprise by me, I had a feeling that since the first game was as good as it was, that all it would have really taken was just a bigger budget, and there you go, you got a AAA title. No big deal for them, but that's a good thing. I'm glad that this worked out, because the game is peak, and it's a great experience that I think everybody should definitely be considering. Now, if you're watching this beginner guide wondering if it's worth actually buying the game and seeing if this video maybe sways you on buying it, then that's also going to be a really good idea, because I will go over a lot of stuff and why. Normally I'd say, like every other content creator, if this video helps you out, feel free to drop a like and subscribe, but realistically, you don't got to do all that. If you want to, though, it would be very appreciated. Doing this whole YouTuber thing isn't exactly that easy, but I don't know. So first things first, the main thing that I think everybody probably ends up overlooking are your actual player stats. These are going to be what make or break you, and literally that and armor and a good weapon. Seriously, without good stats, you're not making it very far. Oh, and yes, that is Luffy's straw hat that I'm wearing, and yes, that straw hat alone weighs 36 pounds, because as you read, it carries the will of those who wore it before me, with 950 conspicuousness. Now, I'm not going to do a guide on how to get that, because, well, I don't think anyone needs that. But if you guys are fans of One Piece and you want to know where it is, then I can actually show you really quick. It'll take 2 seconds. So if you head over to, once you actually get to the Gutenberg, I think, area or whatever, which will be from Shukdal over here, completely east from here, like southeast, there's going to be a little town called Billini. And if you go southeast even more from here and you zoom in, around this area is going to be an old massive tree. It's sitting on some rocks. It's really hard to miss. Feel free to map this out on your game and try to find Luffy's straw hat if you want. So back to player stats. Your main level, of course, is going to be just your main levels. So far, things that I've gone through to get, specifically at the levels that I had access to getting them, were Charming Man. So if you gain reputation, the increase will be 10% higher. Some of these perks have a lot of pros and cons, and that's not really going to be what you want to go for at the start of the game. You're not going to want to get something that has a huge debuff effect later on or currently while you're using whatever it may be. So that's probably not a good idea. Driven by Vengeance, for example, after killing an opponent in close combat, I get 10% more attack damage and faster stamina recovery, and it lasts for 30 seconds. So if I kill someone in combat, I just now got 10% more attack damage, just generally, for everything. That's pretty good. And then we got Martin's Heritage, which is pretty good. You will improve faster in sword fighting, crafting, and survival skills, as all experience gain will be 10% higher. These are really good things to be getting early game, because these don't have any drawbacks to them, unlike a lot of other perks. For something like strengths, things that I went with so far, for something like strength, something that you're going to want to go for would be something like Hardworking Lad. Basically, if you're carrying sacks or dead bodies, the weight only counts as half, therefore they will be hardly a burden. Carrying them will no longer cost extra stamina. Additionally, your carrying capacity is permanently increased by 8 pounds. So this is actually a pretty useful perk, because there's going to be a lot of quests in the game's main story where you're just carrying sacks or bodies around for some reason, which is cool, but that does actually come in handy. As well as Pack Mule, which just gives you an extra 12 pounds to carry. Going into agility, Deft Hands will actually give you the required agility for all your weapons will be 2 lower. In general, if you have a lower agility than the weapon requires, you will find it more difficult to fight with, but if you have higher agility, then the stamina consumption will drop. With this perk, you'll reach that state sooner. Pretty cool. Another really good one that I like a lot is Dominant Hand. If you're using a one-handed sword, usually without a shield, so like a mace or a shorter sword, not two-handed, attacks will cost 20% less stamina. Blocking will also cost less stamina and be more effective. This effect works with a torch in your offhand, thankfully, because if you had to do this at night without a torch, that'd be horrid. So this is a good one because, well, there's no drawbacks to it. You can't use a shield, but the pros to it are really good. Now, you're not going to want to miss out on any of these tabs. So for example, in your skill tree section, these are going to be really important. Even things in your alchemy section, you're going to eventually want to get. Oh, and by the way, you don't have to worry about like global amount of stat points that go into your skills that you have to worry about. Oh, well, what do I put them to first? Should I put all my stuff into Scholar? No. All of these different things will actually go up as you do specifically them. So If you're doing a lot of alchemy related stuff, then you're gonna get points in alchemy. If you're doing a lot of drinking, believe it or not, you're gonna get a lot of stuff for drinking. That's just how it works. Horsemanship, the more you spend time with your horse and use your horse, unironically, you'll unlock more points for your horsemanship perk. So that's just how that works. It goes with everything. But in your craftsmanship section, these are going to be very, very important. So for this one, attacks and blocks made with heavy weapons consume 10% less stamina. That's it. It's just a good perk that has a really good pro to it. Razor sharp. If you sharpen a weapon on the grindstone to a condition of 98% or higher, the weapon gains a bonus effect that increases its slashing damage by 10%. The effect will remain active as long as the weapon's condition stays above 75%. Basically, get this perk and then just like don't not have an unsharpened sword on you. So this perk with a sharpened sword plus the one-handed ability that I showed you guys here does a lot of damage. So if you're using a one-handed sword that's sharpened fully, which I will show you guys how to do that properly later on, works perfectly. But I'm not kidding though, you guys really should go and get specifically these perks. So if you're at the part of the game that I'm at where I have to go to Kuttenberg and find some guy called the Goat, you're probably roughly around the same part as I am with how many skills you have. These are what you should be getting. These have made the game so much easier for me. I'll also go over tips that'll make the game easier for you guys in other ways as well. I'm going to show you guys locations for money, good weapons, armor, and tips for other things. Like this will be an all-rounder video, but nothing that actually spoils any of the game's fun. So I got you guys covered. So you're going to want to pick up thorough maintenance for that 10% slower gear damage. You're going to want to get hardened steel for the 20% slower, so that weapons that you make will actually deteriorate 20% slower. Pretty cool. Totally legit. Stolen weapons and armor and clothing in your inventory will lose their stolen status 20% faster. Yes, if you guys didn't know, yes, when you steal items in the game, you probably found out the hard way that people can actually find out that you stole them and then to the pillory it is with you. Yeah, that's not a lot of fun. However, what you guys probably didn't know is if you have stolen items on you and you wait long enough, you can actually remove the stolen status and then you can go sell these or just keep them. So if you were wondering, yes, you can go to an armory for a bunch of guards and steal their really good gear and then just wait for a really long time and then it's yours, which you'll have to get up every day and eat and make sure you're keeping up on your stats, but it's kind of worth it. And you check whenever the stuff's not stolen anymore is there's a little red hand icon beside it on the actual item in your inventory. It'll just no longer be there anymore. In the Warfare tab, you're going to want to get Evade, Feint, Perfect Block, Riposte, Steadfast, Against All Odds, and Hardened Veteran. Against All Odds is really good because you actually get a +2 bonus in Strength, Agility, and Warfare whenever you're fighting against superior numbers, which is going to happen way more than you think. So, and by the way, what this stat means is superior numbers means anything more than one other person. So if you're not just fighting one dude, two or more, you immediately get this effect. In swords, you're going to want to get Opening Strike, Showtime, and Tendon Slicer. If heavy weapons is more your thing, this is going to be more personal preference. I haven't actually done anything with heavy weapons. It's not really my forte. I've honestly been really just enjoying swords, so that's just me. Being honest, heavy weapons in this game are pretty good, so anything that you get that just reduces the stamina use that you expel by using these heavy weapons will be good enough because the weapons themselves are already very strong. So in the unarmed section, it's probably a pretty good idea to get the Belligerent Brawler because after the first strike in combat, subsequent unarmed attacks will cost you 20% less stamina and will be 10% stronger. It lasts for 30 seconds. The reason you're going to want to actually put stuff into the unarmed section is because you're going to get into a lot of fistfights in this game. A lot of them just end up being actual story quests, just missions where you just get into random fistfights with people all the time. At least if you want to. Usually you can talk your way out of it, but sometimes you can't, and it has to happen. So yeah, no pain, no gain. While fighting unarmed, you gain 15% more experience in strength, agility, and vitality. This is great because if you actually just get into a lot of fistfights with people, you just level up your strength and vitality and agility, which is really good. Crippling Shot for the marksmanship section is a really good one to consider getting because you'll deal damage to an enemy with a ranged weapon and their stamina will recover super slow during combat, and your actual combat ability will be heavily reduced. Basically, if you just shoot someone with an arrow, they'll just be like poo-poo at fighting you. Oh, and there's a buff section, so whenever you have debuffs or active perk buffs, so Fleeting Shadow, so currently I'm a wanted criminal, but catching you is no easy feat because I have bonus on agility, vitality, and stealth. Basically, if I walk through a town where I'm wanted, I actually have a higher chance to escape if a guard tries to catch me, which is pretty nice actually. However, I do have damaged armor. Some parts of my equipment are in bad shape. Better take care of that, or else you risk equipment reduction in quality. So it's probably a pretty good idea to just fix your armor whenever you can. If you really have to go to a blacksmith and buy some armor repair kits, just buy them. They're not that expensive, and it's way worth it to have fixed perfect armor than it is to just run around in broken rags. Oh, and if you didn't know, you can look at your reputation for every area that you visited, which is kind of cool. And with specific people of each area. So for the people of the forest, the herb women, gamekeepers, woodcutters, farms, grave diggers, and executioners, I'm pretty cool with them so far. However, in Miskowitz, with the men-at-arms, yeah, not so much. Oh, and in the stats section, if you really wanted to, you could check out how many hours you have put into things and how much money you've spent. And there's also a sidekick section. Oh, by the way, another thing about your inventory that you really would need to know is, if you didn't know, your horse actually has an inventory of its own. And this is really important to know because whenever you're out looting, which you will be out looting at some point, you're going to need to store stuff somewhere. It can't hold everything, but it can hold enough. It can hold 118 pounds, which, not too bad. My one tip for when you're doing a lot of quests where you're going to be faced with some seriously interesting decisions, well, I'm going to give you a pretty good example of what you should be doing. So, for example, I'm on a certain quest line right now with some certain people, and one of the things that I had to go do was find a bunch of them. One of the people that I was looking for that I ended up finally finding turned out to be no longer with us anymore. But he had a certain thing on him, an item that I can sell for a lot of money. But he owed people money, and if you finally find his body and you take that item off him, you need to give it back to them. Actually, you don't. You can run and you can call your horse and just get out of there, and boom, you now have a super expensive item on you that you can sell or will probably come in handy later on down the line for that quest. The game's quests are actually very intuitive. You actually really do need to think very long and hard about decisions, because at the end of the day, it is still just an RPG game. So, but it's like the kind of RPG game where decisions actually make a difference. Usually you get a lot of, like, you know, Bethesda saying, oh, and all your decisions matter, which in those games, it doesn't. It actually doesn't matter at all. Making decisions in Skyrim is making decisions whether or not you should poop at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. At being completely honest, it really doesn't make a big difference. However, in Kingdom Come 2, everything you say to everybody is going to have either heavy pros or heavy backlash later on. So it's probably a good idea to maybe, I don't know, think about what you say before you say it, and also think about the outcome. Usually your gut telling you one thing will probably be completely right. Oh, by the way, when you're riding through the town of Optowitz, they're all just completely hostile. I haven't really figured out why yet, but if you do stop here, it's around here. It's just the first place after Sukdal. When you get to the second map in the game, it's the first place you'll end up riding on, probably. It's kind of dangerous. There's just guards and stuff everywhere killing everybody. I don't really know what the deal is, and I haven't figured that out yet, although I'm sure there's a whole reason why this town's been taken over completely. One thing that you do need to be wary of when you're fast traveling is there is a pretty good chance while fast traveling, you will just be randomly met with random people on your travels, and the game will ask you if you want to stop, flee, or just keep going. Usually if you do want to just flee, it's possible, but also sometimes not really possible. So sometimes you'll have to stay and fight, but that's why you want to be prepared. And also sometimes if you're at, especially early game, when you have absolutely nothing, it's a good idea to stop and fight those random bandits, because they're gonna have good gear on them. It might take a lot of retries. Being honest, the game's not easy in any way at all. The game is difficult, and it's meant to be, but it's worth it. Apparently at the Dry Devil's Den, if you guys didn't know, there's a painkiller brew, a bandage, or maybe two, sitting on your little end table, your little nightstand. I didn't know that until now. In the early game, when you're in the Trotsky area of the game, the first map, the first place that you come across, it's going to be really hard. You do basically just start out as a homeless poor person with absolutely nothing to say for. Literally, it's kind of tough actually. But we're not going to talk about any of that right now, because what matters most is I'm going to show you guys how blacksmithing works. Now, I know you guys have probably done a little bit of blacksmithing, of course, because at the start of the game, the first blacksmith you meet does actually show you how to make stuff. However, there's a lot more to it than that. For starters, to get an incredibly good weapon in the game, a bit down the line, you will find a very specific sword, and you will then unlock the ability to craft a reforged version of it, which, yes, is very, very good. Oh, and if you didn't notice, the reforged version of the sword is worth over 3,000 Russian, which that's actually a lot in one go. So how do you specifically craft this? You're gonna actually need a very special type of metal. Hold up, apparently I'm really hungry. Now we're doing good.
Oh, excuse me.
So after you do that quest and you finally get the ability to craft this sword, all you need is, well, the sword itself and Toledo steel. 3 Toledo steel. You will find Toledo steel pretty easily, or you can just buy it off of a blacksmith. It's actually not that hard to come by. It's a little expensive, but the sword's like really good. And when you pair that with on a grindstone, which I'll show you guys right now. See how the sword says it's at 98% health? So I immediately get that buff because it's above 70%. But for the sake of this video, to really quickly show you guys, when you do go to sharpen a weapon, you're gonna use your right stick to actually lean forward, and you want to see yellow sparks, not white sparks. So when you start pedaling, right there, that's what you want to see. I would sharpen it more, but this thing's actually completely perfect right now, so there's no point. But obviously, you could easily tell those were yellow and not white sparks, and it's pretty easy to tell the difference. Now, something that I like to do is store materials on my horse for crafting stuff, because then whenever I need to craft something, my horse just has it all on them. I don't remember how I got so much copper, but if you guys were wondering, you can find a lot of really good materials at places around the map whenever you go to things like a woodcutter's area. So if there's a giant mill of some sort, where I'm thinking of a sawmill, but a woodcutter's area where you just see a giant plain of cut trees and little shacks and stuff, don't hesitate to stop. The chests inside of those buildings, those tiny little houses, are gonna have like really, really good stuff, like things you will need later on, or well, if you want. Oh, and now that I'm looking and there's a water trough here, don't ever not wash yourself. People quite literally will affect how the outcome of your conversations with people will actually be defined largely on if you're just covered in mud and crap and blood. So it takes 2 seconds, just wash yourself. Oh, and if you did make it to the Dry Devil's Den, if you didn't know, if you actually head down here past the little stream that cuts on the road, there's actually a bathhouse area, which they can actually not only bathe you, but clean all of your clothing, armor, and they can also do the business with you, which is, so anyway. If we buy some scrap metal from this blacksmith right here, you can always buy the stuff.
Pleasure doing business. Take care.
And then you head over to here and you craft a bunch of work axes. At the start of the game, they weren't lying. You can actually make a lot of money off this, because the price for scrap metal versus getting an axe out of it is way more. If anything, the fact that you can just buy the scrap metal for so cheap from the blacksmiths and then craft an axe that's worth 10 times the amount. Also, I'm not sure why, but the blacksmiths at the Devil's Den is kind of broken. The coals don't get hot, and this, whatever you're banging on the anvil goes through the anvil. So far, I've used a couple blacksmiths, and it only does it here from what I can tell anyway, so I'm sure they'll get this fixed. And as you can tell, not great. But you guys already figured out in the blacksmithing tutorial that yellow sparks like that with a loud ding are the best thing you can do. Just watch your stamina. Don't hit the same spot twice. Make sure to flip it over. I just want to say, I think that's the longest I've ever got Henry to whistle.
I won't get too far without fire.
Give it a good quench. There you go. You can sit there and you can just do that all day. There's a lot of actual legal stuff you can do as just jobs, which is actually kind of cool. I like the fact that in this game you can just spend as long as you want doing day-to-day things of just a normal person. You don't have to be fighting a war or doing criminal things. Not that you're really meant to specifically be a criminal in this game. That is entirely, whether that's canon for you to do is actually completely up to you. Like, you don't have to steal, you don't have to kill and rob people. Even in the actual story, a lot of that is like completely optional. The way you can totally take just an entire, let's just say this, there are some times and in the actual story where you do some pretty not great things, and that's if you end up just taking that direction. I don't know how to, you have a lot of choice in what you do, and the outcomes are crazy, and it's super awesome. So like, this is one of the only games I can say that I've ever actually had the developers not go and promise, oh, whatever you say and choose will be the outcome of your story, forge your nothing like that. They never really, I don't think they said that. I think we just had a trailer and then the game was just peak. So, but seriously, your decisions literally matter. When Far Cry 5 came out, Ubisoft tried giving us that whole every decision matters. Whatever you do is going to shape your experience in Hope County. That wasn't the case. Clearly, no matter what you did, you had the same outcome and changed nothing. Any characters who died anyway, and dialogue options weren't a thing. Your character didn't talk to begin with. However, in this game, man, did they kill it. Like, it's just, yeah. If you're needing a reason to buy this game, just keep watching this video. Oh, look at that, we reached main level 12. So now we can actually head for another really awesome perk. Now, this perk, when in towns and villages and surrounding areas in those villages, you gain a 1+ bonus on strength, agility, vitality, and speech. So say you're doing a quest where you're fighting in a town. It doesn't matter what the situation is, you're in a town or surrounding area, you get a bonus in strength, agility, vitality, and speech. It's just only pro, no con. There's no drawback to that. Really awesome. Alright, now I'm gonna show you guys how to get some free money. And no, I'm not gonna tell you to buy my book and take my 30-day course to being successful. I'm gonna show you that if you go to Kuttenberg, we're gonna fast travel from here. We are actually too overloaded to fast travel. If you didn't know, when trying to fast travel, if you are over encumbered, you kind of can't fast travel. It doesn't help I'm wearing a straw hat that's 36 pounds on its own, but it's cool. So now we just gotta pray we don't get stopped on the way there. We will probably get stopped at least 3 times. There's a sleeping man. You know what? Let's explore this. I bet if we rob this guy's pockets, he's probably got some good stuff on him. Well, now he's no longer sleeping. I was gonna rob this guy. Carol Arrowhead. Oh my god, wait, hold up, what?
What are you doing here?
What does it look like? Resting. I've been lugging these sacks for ages now. So I decided to take a load off. But I can tell you, it ain't too comfortable here.
Look, you have something sticking out of your forehead, right? It looks a bit like a horn.
A horn. Nobody's called it that yet.
What is it then?
It's an arrow. Well, what's left of it, that is. A metal arrowhead and a bit of a wooden shaft. It used to be longer, but I broke it off after I nearly took a wench's eye out with it.
What? An arrow? Like, from a bow?
Aye, an arrow. With an arrowhead, a shaft, and a fletching. Simply an arrow.
You have an arrow stuck in your head? Shouldn't you be, well, dead? I've never seen anyone with an arrow in his head who wasn't.
Of course I should be. Dead as a doornail. If it was an ordinary arrow, I'd be pushing up daisies, but it ain't no ordinary arrow.
What's special about it?
Always questions all of a sudden. How about you tell me who you are first? Talking to strangers ain't the safest these days.
I'm Henry, the son of a blacksmith from Scalix.
Oh, fuck. I heard about Scalix. I heard it was real bad.
That it was.
Well, at least you got out in one piece. Look, the name's Carl. Folk call me Carl Arrowhead. On account of, well...
How come the arrow didn't kill you then?
Because it ain't no ordinary arrow.
You said that already.
Thing is, it's a magic arrow.
Right.
You don't believe me, do you?
I don't think Henry's convinced.
Sometimes I get mixed up in, let's say, some confrontation. And sometimes things get a bit dicey. I was always getting beaten up, wounded, battered. But ever since I had this arrow in my noggin, not a damn thing. No wounds, no bruises. Nobody can hurt me. They haven't a chance.
Well, that could very well be a coincidence. You're just lucky.
It ain't no coincidence. It's a gift from God. This arrow here blessed me.
Do you think it could be taken out? Can I touch it?
If you touch it, I'll rip off both your arms, shove them up your arse, and make you clap.
Easy! Easy now! I was just asking. No need to get upset. You're worried I'd get the magic too, eh?
No, I'm worried that you wouldn't march and step, and I wouldn't like that.
Doesn't it hurt? Looks like a nasty wound.
Look, when God blesses you, you accept it for what it is.
So does it hurt?
Hurts like hell. And it fucked my eyesight up a bit. But that don't matter. It's still a gift from God.
I understand. You're simply undefeatable.
Exactly, lad. A whole year without a scratch. A whole year. Me and my lads got ourselves into some dodgy situations, I'll tell you that. But enough chat. I've got to get back to the camp. I've got a proposition for you. You lug one of them sacks here for me, and we can talk some more along the way. What do you say?
Well, can't let you lug them all on your own.
Glad to hear it.
And just like that, you get randomly
Sacks
put in
are
just
heavy as
quests.
fuck,
This
but
just
I
happens all the
couldn't
time.
just leave 'em behind. Man can be invincible, and blessed by God, but 2 sacks of charcoal is still 2 sacks of charcoal.
You're probably not a monk, are you? What are you then? Bandit?
A bandit. It don't sound too good when you say it out loud. Bandit. Do you know who the real bandits are, in my opinion?
I don't.
Them lords, what hold their protective hand over us. They stuff themselves to bursting, hunt in the forests, start wars, and the ordinary folk has to do all the work for them. And when you get in their way, they string you up or beat you like a dog. Not even the worst bandit behaves like that. That's what people should be whipped for in the stocks, not for hunting a deer in some noble's forest.
I don't think he's a fan of the
Or picking
government.
something up here and there. We're just trying to survive is all.
How do you manage to survive?
That depends. Sometimes it's all right, other times it's brutal. Whenever we do a job, we put our necks on the line. But we only ever take enough to survive. And we never kill nobody. Well, unless it's really
That's pretty noble.
necessary, of course. But I suppose you're
I
right.
like these guys.
We're bandits. And sometimes it really fucks me off.
This sack really is heavy. How much further is it?
We're getting close. Hang in there.
You get put in a random quest like this just out of nowhere. This game did break some record of 2 million lines of dialogue, or I don't know, something like that. It beat Baldur's Gate apparently. So I'm not surprising that there's just some super like person that's around every single corner you turn, which is cool.
I dropped that sack over there, but look here.
Okay, back to the free money that I was telling you guys about. We're gonna head back to Kuttenberg. So now that you're in Kuttenberg, you're gonna open your map up, and you're gonna want to head over. If you look from like where the little clouds are at the very bottom left of my screen, there's a little island inside of that little bit of water over there. If you hover over and set a waypoint, that's where we're heading. So let's get our bearings. We gotta go this way.
Careful.
Now, one thing that a lot of people, I'm sure, are very, cautious about with getting this game is that it'd be way too hard for them. I will say, yes, it is difficult, but it's worth it. Like, if you're not like good at games per se, like it's worth the struggle in certain cases. The payoff is you're playing the game for the experience, right? So if you just go through and only ever play games that are just as easy as 1, 2, 3, well,
Jesus Christ be praised.
not a very fun experience, is it? I'm not saying go and specifically play Dark Souls 2, but you get my point. If you didn't know and you're on console, if you hit both the sticks on your controller at the same time, there's actually a photo mode, so that's pretty cool. Man, the architecture in Kuttenberg is cool. By the way, sprinting everywhere you go for a while is actually a really good idea because, well, it actually is exercise, and the way this game's abilities and stats work, the way they progress is, yes, you can manually pick out certain skills and stats that you want, but those don't go up if you don't do anything with them. So if you want your vitality and agility to go up, then, well, you're gonna have to run around. All right, out here we're at the gallows, which is not the nicest place to be at, if I'm being honest. So once you get here, that is the guy you're looking for, and I'll show you why. Starters, there's a barrel in here, and it has an engraved gemstone ring worth 315, 33 groschen, bone rosary, a human skull, and a thigh bone, as well as some schnapps and an ordinary coat. But I'm gonna not take that coat because I don't really want it. What you're looking for is this guy right here. His name's Angel. I don't know why. I don't know why we know his name, but we're gonna rob this guy. Why do we want to rob this guy? Well, Angel has a gold badge of might and the map of Kuttenberg Underground. He also has some hand wraps if you want, so if you want your hands to have little hand wraps on them, then there you go. So what are we gonna do? Well, we're gonna head to the book section, go to the Kuttenberg map, and we're gonna take this a little read. If you look, apparently under Kuttenberg is an entire underground section. Yeah, cool. That'll actually show you how to get underneath and find some other really interesting treasures. Next up, you just want to go a little northeast from here. Oh, and if you guys want really easy starter groschen for the first area, I'm actually going to show you, I'm going to pull up a clip of where you can actually find that. All right, once you made your way over here, if you walk into this little group of trees by this little island that I marked on the map, you'll notice this by this big tree to the right is a sunken chest. Hey, you're going to want to head over here. Specifically, right here. Once you got in here and you manage to lockpick this door, you can actually get behind in here, and there's a lot of really really, really worthwhile loot. Oh, and if you're wondering, wait a minute, the last chest in this door were very hard lockpicks. How am I supposed to get through those? I'm gonna just show you a little bit of a trick. You can actually level your stealth up, so thievery, by sneaking around behind creatures, which sounds really weird. So what does that mean? If you go to find a barn somewhere in a stall where there's either a horse or a cow, something, and you just crouch behind them, you'll actually level your stealth up, which is interesting. Also, if you're wondering how to get more lockpicks, if you come to this chest, say you already have one, it's an easy lockpick, and it's actually sitting right here in Kuttenberg. Also, your thievery goes up when you lockpick chests or doors, or, well, stealing any of it. And we just actually leveled up our thievery, which allows us to can now get Toolmaster, which is going to be great because we'll be more durable and last 15% longer before breaking.
Yes, sir! I've been waiting!
No matter what, it's going to be difficult. Anyway, so that's for those. Now for a few last really important things. One thing, don't not explore. I get, it makes sense that it's a lot easier to just do all the main quests and beat the game, but you're doing this for the experience of just enjoying what this game has to offer. And I can very much confidently say the experience is worth it. When you're traveling and there's like some random thing going on in the roads ahead and you get stopped by somebody, whether they're mean or not, 9 times out of 10 you should probably stop just to do it because it could be really fun or really cool, or it could be a really interesting new character to meet. You never really know. Always pack light, don't carry too much stuff on you, because then when you go to loot something that you found was really important, but you also have other really important stuff on you, you're not going to know what to drop, and that's going to also be really not great later on. So constantly head back to wherever you have a bed and a stash that you can just store stuff. Oh, and about the gun that you get in the game, so I didn't know this because I'm stupid, but couldn't figure out why with all the ammo I have for my gun, why it wouldn't shoot, or why I wouldn't reload it. Well, believe it or not, like the crossbow or a regular bow, you actually need to take the lead ball and put it in the slot along with the gun itself. I didn't know that at all, so I just figured you would reload it. Just like, yeah. Anyway, I didn't realize they were 2 separate things you had to equip, but they are, so there you go. In case you didn't know that, that is how that works. You're gonna find a lot of books throughout the game. So there is a certain quest at the start of the game where you get near the end of that first area and you have to loot around through a giant Trotsky castle. Go through bookshelves and people's stuff and find books that are going to teach you new skills. It's easier because then you don't have to go and pay money to learn it from someone like a skill teacher. There are skill teachers around the game, but if you just find the books, you get to do it for free. It's just really hard to find the books. However, in the Trotsky Castle, they're everywhere. I think I ended up dumping off like so different skill books solely because I didn't have the room for it and I couldn't run away from the guards in time, and that quest ended up being really hard. But if you plan ahead, then you should be good. Keep in mind, you can't read those books during a quest. You have to do it outside because it actually passes time when you do that stuff. Oh, another really important thing is I picked a different horse in the game that I was offered for free, but if you actually keep pebbles, and if you didn't know, you can actually get pebbles at the place that the wedding takes place from the guy that takes care of the horses there. You can actually buy pebbles back for like 150 groschen or something small like that. And if you actually have high enough charisma, you can just convince him to give pebbles back to you. If you actually keep pebbles throughout the game, it will be the best horse in the game because you'll get a certain perk with it after using pebbles for a while, and it makes Pebbles the best horse in the game. I didn't do that, and then that kind of I am without Pebbles. But you guys make sure you do that if you want. Best horse in the game. Not at the start, it's like first, but then it'll pay off. Now for the starter area, when you're in the Trotsky area of the map, I'm going to show you guys a quick clip that shows you exactly how to get a very easy starter amount of groschen, which will help out quite a lot. That's gonna be it for the video. If you guys enjoyed, feel free to drop a like and subscribe. I do these kinds of videos all the time, so yeah. If you guys want to see a guide on a certain game that you really like, feel free to drop in the comments, or if you want to see something else on Kingdom Come 2. Either way, leave a comment. But that's it for the video. Without further ado, I'll see y'all later. Peace out.